Senior Minister of State, Dr. Muhammad Maliki bin Osman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Minister Vivian outlined key foreign policy challenges for Singapore. I will now highlight opportunities for Singapore. First, strengthening existing partnerships. Second, enlarging our circle of friends. And third, expanding and intensifying our outreach. First, on strengthening existing partnerships. I will begin with the US, a major defense and economic partner for Singapore. For decades, the US has been a stabilizing force in the Asia-Pacific. Its continued commitment and sustained military presence in the region is even more vital today, given the evolving regional developments. We have developed broad and substantive defense ties with the US, underpinned by regular high-level visits, joint military training, defense technology cooperation, and professional exchanges. Since 2014, Singapore has contributed military assets and personnel towards the global coalition to defeat ISIS, led by the US. During US Vice President Mike Pence's visit to Singapore in November, we signed a letter of intent to jointly develop a Singapore-US cybersecurity technical assistance program. Last month, I attended the meeting of the ministers of the global coalition to defeat ISIS in Washington, D.C., to share Singapore's ongoing efforts to build regional counter-terrorism capabilities. We are working towards the renewal in 2020 of our 1990 landmark agreement granting the US access to military facilities in Singapore. Notwithstanding our different positions on trade, Singapore and the US continue to enjoy robust economic relations. It remains our largest foreign direct investor. Its investment has increased by some 21% from 280 billion Singapore dollars in 2016 to 339 billion Singapore dollars in 2017. Nearly 4,500 US companies have set up shop here, creating jobs in finance, insurance, manufacturing, and trade. We signed new cooperation agreements on energy, standards, advanced manufacturing, and technology partnerships, as well as automatic exchange of financial account information. Incoming visits by President Donald Trump and Vice President Pence and several other cabinet secretaries to Singapore, as well as Minister Vivian and other Singapore ministers to the US last year, allowed both sides to exchange views on issues of mutual interest. We will sustain this steady rhythm of high-level engagements in 2019. Closer to home, ASEAN continues to be a key pillar of Singapore's foreign policy, as articulated by Minister Vivian earlier. When ASEAN was formed in 1967, Southeast Asia was a troubled and unstable region, rife with hostility and confrontation. It was a leap of faith for ASEAN's 5 founding members to put aside their differences to bring the region together. The expansion of ASEAN from 5 to 10 members brought new opportunities and challenges, including creating consensus among 10 states with diverse political systems, histories, and levels of economic development. ASEAN has come a long way since, but maintaining ASEAN's unity, centrality, and relevance remains as important as ever. Mr. Vikram Nair and Dr. Teo Ho Pin asked how ASEAN can strengthen its centrality and speak in one voice on contentious issues. Under the theme of resilient and innovative during our 2018 ASEAN Chairmanship, we focused on enhancing ASEAN's centrality, unity, and relevance. For example, we launched initiatives to enhance aviation safety for military aircraft, combat terrorism and extremism, as well as strengthen ASEAN's cyber strategy development and capabilities. We deepened economic integration by focusing on growth areas in e-commerce and digital technology. These initiatives boost regional integration and increase key partners' stake in the development of our region. Amidst major power rivalry, ASEAN member states will increasingly be subject to competing external pressures that may pull us in different directions. Balancing national interests against regional interests is a perennial challenge, but one we can overcome by increasing ASEAN's value proposition to each member and enlarging our sphere of common interests. Dr. Teo also asked about the status of the ASEAN Smart Cities Network, or ASCN. The ASEAN's 26 pilot cities came together last year to set out ASEAN's definition of a smart city and develop city-specific action plans towards becoming smart cities by 2025. Since 2018, ASEAN has secured over 30 partnerships with interested private and public entities. For Singapore businesses, ASEAN presents regional business opportunities in many areas, including urban development, human capital development, technology incubation, and financial services. Singapore will work with Thailand, this year's ASEAN chair, to shepherd the ASEAN initiative onto its next phase of development. Singapore has taken over the country coordinatorship of ASEAN-EU dialogue relations from 2018 to 2021. Mr. Murali Pillai asked about our goals and priorities, and if Brexit will affect ASEAN-EU dialogue relations. While there remains much uncertainty over Brexit, Singapore aims to facilitate concrete and beneficial outcomes for ASEAN-EU dialogue relations. This includes ongoing negotiations on the ASEAN-EU Comprehensive Air Transport Agreement and efforts to resume negotiations on the ASEAN-EU Free Trade Agreement. These initiatives will deepen linkages between two dynamic integrated blocs with a combined market of more than 1 billion people and realize significant economic opportunities for our businesses and our peoples. At a recent meeting co-chaired by Minister Vivian, ASEAN and EU foreign ministers agreed in principle to upgrade ASEAN-EU relations to a strategic level and reaffirmed our shared commitment to multilateralism and a rules-based world order. One complex and evolving issue that ASEAN has to deal with is the situation in the Rakhine State in Myanmar. Understandably, ASEAN member states are concerned about the situation. The ASEAN leaders and foreign ministers have discussed this issue extensively. However, there are no quick fixes. This is a long-standing and complex issue which needs a political solution. Ms. Ente Ong asked about ASEAN's policy regarding the situation in the Rakhine State. At Myanmar's invitation at the 33rd ASEAN Summit in November 2018, the leaders agreed to dispatch a needs assessment team to the Rakhine State to identify ways to support Myanmar's efforts in the repatriation process. That said, it is ultimately the responsibility of the Myanmar government and its stakeholders to find a viable and durable long-term solution. The discussions at the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, or ITA, runs parallel to and are consistent with the conversations between ASEAN leaders and foreign ministers. Currently, there are no discussions among ASEAN on pursuing measures such as the Human Rights Court or a regional refugee and asylum policy. We must keep in mind that ASEAN member states have different approaches in dealing with humanitarian and human rights issues due to their own history and domestic socio-political dynamics. It will be difficult to apply a one-size-fits-all approach. Mr. Louis Ng asked whether Singapore could consider donating to the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR, fund for refugees for Rakhine State, in addition to our general contribution. As a small country with limited resources, we are not a major donor to the UNHCR. However, as Mr. Ng pointed out, we increased our annual contributions in 2016. Our contribution is comparable to that of the other ASEAN countries. What is important is to stay focused on creating a conducive environment for refugees to return to the Rakhine State. That can only be achieved through internal dialogue and consensus. ASEAN also has to deal with the threat of terrorism. Our region faces the heightened threat of returning fighters and radicalized individuals who may be persuaded to carry out attacks where they live. The recent bomb attacks at the cathedral in southern Philippines, which claimed at least 20 lives, reminds us of existing threats to regional stability as well as racial and religious harmony. To combat these threats, platforms for information sharing such as the Our Eyes initiatives are vital. We will continue to work with like-minded countries to promote religious moderation and interfaith harmony, while contributing to the counter-terrorism capacity-building efforts of our Middle Eastern partners where possible. For instance, when Sheikh Ahmad Al-Taib, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, visited Singapore last May at the Prime Minister's invitation, he shared insights on Islamic principles and practices in a multi-religious society and exhorted our Muslim community to stay harmonious and to harness religion as a force for good. Such exchanges are critical, given the potential for extremism and conflicts in the Middle East to spill over in our region. Minister Vivian spoke about our relations with our closest neighbours. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, let me take this opportunity to underscore a few points in Malay, please. Beberapa isu dua hala telah timbul dengan Malaysia dalam beberapa bulan kebelakangan ini, seperti garis had pelabuhan dan ruang udara. Dalam isu had pelabuhan, seperti para ahli parlimen sudah sedia maklum, Malaysia telah bertindak sendiri meluaskan had pelabuhan Johor Bahru pada 25 Oktober 2018. Sejak lewat bulan November 2018, kapal-kapal kerajaan Malaysia telah mencerobohi kawasan perairan wilayah Singapura berkali-kali. Kita telah membuat bantahan terhadap perluasan kepada had pelabuhan Johor Bahru itu dan juga membantah pencerobohan ke atas perairan kita. Pencerobohan itu sebenarnya tidak membantu Malaysia dari segi undang-undang. Malahan, dia telah meruncingkan ketegangan dan membahayakan keselamatan navigasi atau pelayaran di kawasan itu. Seperti yang disaksikan dalam pelanggaran antara kapal pengangkutan berat yang berdaftar di Greece bernama Piraeus dan kapal kerajaan Malaysia Polaris yang berlabuh di perairan wilayah Singapura tanpa izin. Para pegawai telah bertemu untuk membincangkan langkah-langkah untuk mengendurkan ketegangan. Kedua-dua pihak sedar akan keperluan yang mendesak untuk mengelakkan berlakunya lagi kemalangan yang tidak diingini. Jawatan Kuasa Kerja dijangka akan menyerahkan saranan-saranan mereka kepada kedua-dua Menteri Ehwal Luar pada awal bulan Mac ini. Perihal ruang udara, Singapura telah merancang untuk menaik taraf lapangan terbang seletar dengan menggunakan sistem pendaratan berpandukan peralatan atau Instrument Landing System (ILS). Sistem itu akan dapat membantu penerbangan yang ingin mendarat di lapangan terbang seletar mendarat dengan selamat walaupun mutu penglihatan kurang jelas. Walau bagaimanapun, Malaysia telah mengisytiharkan kawasan larangan tetap ataupun restricted area pada 25 Disember 2018, justru menjejas penerbangan yang beroperasi di lapangan terbang seletar. Berikutan dari mesyuarat di antara Menteri Luar pada 8 Januari 2019 dan Menteri Pengangkutan pada 23 Januari 2019, kedua-dua pihak telah bersetuju untuk menggantung peraturan ILS dan kawasan larangan tetap sehingga 31 Mac tahun ini. Sejak itu, Menteri Pengangkutan dan para pegawai dari kedua-dua pihak telah mengadakan beberapa pertemuan untuk membincangkan isu-isu ini dan kami menanti dan mengalu-alukan penyelesaian yang dipersetujui bersama. Sebagai jiran yang rapat, isu-isu akan sentiasa timbul dari masa ke semasa. Kita harus menanganinya bersama. Apa yang penting adalah bagaimana kita menanganinya. Berbincang dalam semangat muhibah, selaras dengan undang-undang antarabangsa dan akur kepada persetujuan yang sudah terbenterai. Walaupun berdepan dengan kesulitan, Singapura tetap berharap untuk bekerjasama dengan Malaysia untuk memupuk perhubungan yang lebih baik dan untuk kerjasama jangka panjang yang lebih erat demi memanfaatkan rakyat kedua-dua negara. Antara Singapura dan Indonesia, kita mempunyai hubungan yang mendalam dan merangkumi berbagai bidang. Pertemuan dan pertukaran pendapat di peringkat tinggi yang begitu kerap menjadi teras perhubungan yang kukuh di antara kami. Saya dan rakan-rakan sekerja amat mesra dengan pemimpin-pemimpin Indonesia dari berbagai daerah dan bertemu mereka dengan kerap apabila mereka berkunjung ke Singapura ataupun apabila kami berkunjung ke sana. Ekonomi dua negara kita terjalin rapat. Singapura masih menjadi pelabur asing terbesar Indonesia. Contoh pelaburan yang penting baru-baru ini ialah pelaburan untuk Taman Perindustrian Kendal dan pelaburan dalam Taman Digital Nongsa. Perancangan keuangan dua hala bernilai 10 bilion dolar Amerika telah diumumkan semasa pertemuan pemimpin 2018 di antara Perdana Menteri dan Presiden Jokowi. Dan ini jelas mencerminkan sikap saling percaya dan yakin akan prestasi ekonomi masing-masing. Tambahan lagi, kami bekerjasama dengan rapat dalam bidang pertahanan, keselamatan dan anti perganasan dalam kami menghadapi cabaran bersama. Indonesia akan mengadakan pilihan raya legislatif dan pilihan raya presiden dalam bulan April tahun ini. Kami mengharapkan proses pilihan raya yang licin dan aman untuk mereka. Kami juga berharap untuk meneruskan hubungan kerjasama yang kukuh dan sudah sekian lama terjalin dengan Indonesia. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bayam King asked about Singapore's engagement of Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. We maintain strong ties with these neighbors through regular high-level exchanges. This year, we will commemorate the 50th anniversary of our diplomatic relations with the Philippines. Trade with all 6 countries continues to grow. Our businesses are keen to collaborate in emerging fields such as fintech, digital economy, smart cities, and renewable energy. Thailand is a long-standing defense partner and continues to support SAF training. We have extensive technical cooperation with Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam. In 2018, we upgraded our technical cooperation centers in Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam to the Singapore Cooperation Centers. These centers enlarge Singapore's mindshare by offering an integrated development assistance platform. This brings me to my second point, that Singapore must strive to constantly enlarge our circle of friends. Mr. Liang Yinghua asked for an update on our relationship with India. It is robust, forward-looking, and we have made progress across all pillars of our strategic partnership. Defense ties have strengthened. Our navies signed an agreement on logistic cooperation and celebrated the 25th anniversary of the annual Singapore-India Maritime Bilateral Exercise last year. Singapore is India's 10th largest trading partner and largest foreign investor. During Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Singapore in June 2018, we concluded the second review of the Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement, or known as CECA. Since CECA came into force in 2005, bilateral trade flows have doubled from 11.818 billion Singapore dollars in 2004 to 25.2 billion Singapore dollars in 2017. The updates to CECA will support greater economic cooperation and provide opportunities for our businesses and people. We have also grown our state-level engagement of cities such as Andhra Pradesh and Maharashtra. With both countries making significant strides towards digitalization, we have established a joint working group to explore further cooperation in fintech and innovation. We launched an initial link for our payment systems between Singapore's NETS and India's RuPay payment system that will enable the workers, tourists, and businesses to make cross-border transactions more securely and conveniently. Dr. Chia Shilu asked about our engagement of emerging markets in Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East. And Mr. Sekamping also asked about our key engagements in the Middle East in 2019 and how efforts have borne fruit. Our engagement in the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia is premised on expanding our economic space, looking after Muslims on pilgrimage, and sharing our development experience. In the Middle East, our trade grew by 21.5% from 50.6 billion Singapore dollars to 61.5 billion Singapore dollars in 2018. We enjoy regular exchanges at the highest political level. DPM Teo Chee Hean visited Jordan, Oman, and Israel in 2018. In January this year, DPM Tharman met key Saudi leaders, including Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi has just visited Singapore yesterday, where both sides issued a joint declaration on the Singapore-UAE Comprehensive Partnership. High-level engagements this year reflect the potential for our ties to grow, especially with states trying to reduce oil dependency and diversify their economies. We will leverage the Gulf Cooperation Council Singapore Free Trade Agreement and work on our agencies to support our companies through legislative frameworks composed of the Avoidance Double Taxation Agreements, or DTAs, and the Bilateral Investment Treaties, or BITs. Every year, Minister in charge of Muslim Affairs, Mahasa Gul Zulkifli, leads a delegation to Saudi Arabia for the annual Hajj ministerial meeting to seek an increase in our official Hajj quota. We obtained an increase in Hajj places in 2018. We recognize the limit to the increase that Saudi Arabia can accord each country in light of logistical realities, but will continue to make our case for more Hajj places for our pilgrims. Mr. Sekamping also asked about how Singapore balances its engagements with countries in the Middle East amidst tensions in the region. Several disputes and conflicts persist in the Middle East and North Africa. Singapore's principle is to keep friendly ties with all countries, regardless of any disputes between them. The diplomatic rift between Qatar and Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt is ongoing. We hope that all parties will work together to find a solution. The complex, multifaceted Israeli-Palestine conflict has particular domestic and regional salience. Tensions continue to simmer at the Israeli-Gaza border and have been exacerbated over the status of Jerusalem. Singapore maintains a principled and consistent position on this issue. We support a negotiated two-state solution with Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security. We hope that they can resume direct negotiations and make progress towards a just and durable solution. Meanwhile, we will continue to work with the Palestine National Authority, or PNA, in practical ways. For example, we shared our development experience with PNA officials and worked with the Japan International Cooperation Agency to conduct an inaugural ICT program in Ramallah last month. Israel is one of our oldest partners. 2019 marks the 50th anniversary of establishment of our diplomatic relations with Israel. We have developed a broad-based relationship with shared interests in many sectors, such as research and development and education. We are also gradually stepping up our engagement of Central Asia. The Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy has an ongoing partnership with the Nazarbayev University in Kazakhstan to offer courses on public administration. Singapore companies are also exploring opportunities in education, infrastructure, and oil and gas sectors in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. I plan to visit Uzbekistan soon to explore other opportunities for cooperation. We are looking for opportunities to step up engagements of key countries in Africa. The continent is expected to grow 4% over the next 2 years. More than 60 Singapore companies, including SMEs across multiple industries, are operating in sectors as wide-ranging as manufacturing, digital economy, transport and logistics, and agribusinesses. Today, Singapore is one of Southeast Asia's largest investors in Africa. Further from home, Singapore's interaction with Latin America has also grown. Our companies are exploring commercial opportunities in major economies in sectors as diverse as ports, airports, oil and gas, logistics, master planning, and education. MFA has worked with MTI to support these companies' entry into the Latin American markets. We are pursuing 2 free trade agreements with the region. One is with Mercosur, a trade bloc which comprises Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, and is the world's 5th largest economy. The other is with the Pacific Alliance, comprising Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. Once concluded, these agreements will help to facilitate trade and investment flows. Last year, we had a series of high-level exchanges with Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico. These culminated in a visit by Prime Minister to Buenos Aires in November 2018 for the G20 Leaders Summit under Argentina's presidency. We will sustain such productive high-level meetings this year, including through PM's visit to Chile for the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting in November 2019. Third, we should continue to expand and intensify our outreach. Minister Vivian mentioned the Singapore Cooperation Programme, or SCP. The SCP was established in 1992 for Singapore to give back to the international community the assistance that we received in our early years of nation building. It is a key conduit for us to provide human resource capacity building to fellow developing countries and has helped to build goodwill for Singapore across the globe. The SCP showcases our expertise and evolving capabilities and allows our officials and companies to interact with foreign officials. In turn, this creates opportunities for our companies in areas such as urban consultancy services and digital technology. This year, we have put together a special climate action package of causes to help developing countries mitigate and adapt to climate change. As small island developing states continue to be most vulnerable, we will step up our delivery of customized programs to help them achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We will also contribute to smart city development in our region through our ASCN. To conclude, Mr. Chairman, to meet the foreign policy challenges of the day, we need to be pragmatic and resilient. But to seize the opportunities before us, we need to be optimistic, open-minded, and courageous. Looking ahead, we should strengthen ties with our closest partners, enlarge our circle of friends, and expand and intensify our outreach. Mr. Chairman, I turn the floor over to my colleague, M.O.S. Sempan.
But before that, I would like to propose to take a break now. Order. I suspend the sitting and will take the chair at 3:20 p.m. Order. Order.